Story Chapter 11. The Story of the Third Ascetic, the King's Son. Very respected lady, the story I tell you is completely different from the stories you have heard. The two storytellers before me each lost an eye simply as a result of fate, while I was one-eyed. Again, because of my own mistake, I committed the crime myself, brought it upon myself, like the following story I told you. My name is Agib, son of a king named Kasib. After my father passed away, I succeeded the throne and still based my capital at the place where my father ruled. This capital city is located on the coast and has one of the most beautiful and safest ports. It also has a fairly large factory capable of providing equipment for 150 warships, always ready to serve when needed. In addition, 50 merchant ships were equipped to transport goods and the same number of small and light yachts for walking and playing on the water. My kingdom also has many magnificent cities with countless large islands, most of which are within sight of the capital. First, I visited the provinces. After that, I armed the fleet and patrolled the islands to encourage my subjects to enthusiastically fulfill their responsibilities. After a while, I went on patrol again, and those trips helped me understand the maritime profession and love it. So I decided to go on an expedition far beyond my islands. To carry out that plan, I prepared 10 ships and set sail. The first 40 days were smooth sailing, but on the 41st night there was a strong headwind and a strong storm seemed to want to sink our entire fleet. However, when the sky is bright, the wind calms down, the clouds dissipate and the sky is beautiful. We stopped at an island and stayed for 2 days to rest and regain our strength. Then continue sailing again. After 10 days at sea, we hoped to see land because the recent storm had changed my mind and ordered us to return. I suddenly realized that the pilot was lost and did not know where his ship was. I ordered a sailor to climb to the top of the tallest mast to visit the ferry, and he informed me that to the right and left, as far as the horizon, I could only see vast sky and sea. But in front, at the bow of the ship, there was a large black patch. Hearing that, the pilot's face changed. With one hand he took off the towel from his head and threw it on the deck. With the other hand he slapped himself in the face and cried loudly, "Oh, Your Majesty, we are in danger. None of us can escape this danger. With all my experience, I cannot guarantee our escape." After speaking, he sobbed like a person who knew for sure that he could not avoid death. His despair spread confusion to everyone on the ship. I asked why he was so desperate. "Alas! Your Majesty," he replied, "the storm has distracted us so far that it will only be noon on Mal Day that we will be close to that black patch, which is nothing more than a black mountain, a southern mine. The magnet right now is attracting our train because of the nails and steel that make up the ship. Tomorrow when we get closer, the magnetic attraction will be stronger, so strong that all the nails in the side of the ship will seem to be pulled out and fly to stick to the mountain. Our ships will be broken up and sunk on the spot. The exposed side of this mountain facing the sea is covered with countless iron nails from countless ships that it has sunk. Therefore, the gravitational pull of this mountain becomes stronger every day. This mountain," the navigator continued, "is extremely dangerous. On the top of the mountain there is a dome made of pure copper, and the pillars are also made of bronze. On top of the dome rose a horse cast in solid bronze. Riding on the horse was a knight, his chest covered with a lead plate on which was engraved a magical charm. According to legend, "Your Majesty, this statue is the main cause of the sinking of countless ships and the deaths of countless people in this place. And the disaster will continue until that statue is toppled." After the navigator finished telling the story, he cried and the whole crew also sobbed. Personally, I don't believe that my end will come. However, each person has their own way to protect themselves. And in a situation where they didn't know how to end it, they went to wish each other and those lucky enough to survive. The next morning we saw the Black Mountain clearly, and with what we had heard, we found it even more terrifying. By noon, the mountain was getting quite close, and just as the pilot had predicted, we saw nails and all things made of iron leaving the ship all at once, flying towards the mountain. The powerful magnet's attraction caused these iron things to hit the mountainside, creating a terrifying sound. The ships broke apart and sank to the very deep sea bottom. All my entourage drowned. But God had mercy on me so that I could cling to a plank, and the wind pushed me to the foot of the Black Mountain. I was not injured, and luckily for me, I landed in a place with steps to climb to the top of the mountain. Scheherazade wanted to continue telling the story, but the morning light made her silent. The emperor saw that it was indeed the queen. Don't fool yourself, because the opening is really interesting. So we won't be surprised at all that he hasn't ordered the queen to be executed that day. In the name of God. Near the next morning, Dinarzade called to her sister, "If my sister is no longer sleeping, could you please tell me the third monk's story?" "My dear Scheherazade," replied this prince, continued his story as follows. "Look, seeing those stone steps, I thanked God with all my words and climbed up while chanting his holy name, because looking to the right and left there was nowhere to put my feet. The road up was so narrow, steep and winding that I thought just a not so strong wind would be enough to knock me over and fall into the sea. But in the end I safely climbed to the top of the mountain. I went under the bronze dome and knelt down to kiss the ground and thanked God for his help. I spent the night under that canopy. In my sleep, I dreamed that a respectable old man appeared before my eyes and told me, 'Listen here, Agib. When you wake up, dig the ground right where your feet are. You will see a bow of bronze and 3 arrows of lead crafted under the constellations to free mankind from all the evils that always threaten them. Take turns shooting these 3 arrows at the statue. The rider will fall into the sea and the horse will fall towards you. I will bury the horse in the place where I dug up the bow and arrow. Once this is done, the sea level will rise to the level of the mountain top, all the way to the base of the arch. When the water rises there, you will see a small boat with only one person rowing with each hand. This person is also made of bronze, but different from the knight you shot down. Get in the canoe, and let him row. Remember not to mention God's name. In 10 days he will steer your canoe to another sea, and from here you can find your way safely back to your kingdom, provided, as I have prescribed, during the journey, absolutely no reminders are given. To the name of God." That's all the old man told and advised me. Waking up, I felt relieved, and immediately did as I was told in the dream. I dug the ground, picked up the bow and 3 arrows. I drew my bow and shot at the bronze knight statue. With the 3rd shot, it tumbled into the sea, and the horse rolled down next to me. I buried it in the bow hole and saw the sea level slowly rise. When the water level was equal to the height of the mountain and reached the base of the arch, I saw a boat coming towards me in the distance. I thank God that everything happens in the correct order as in the dream. Finally the boat reached the shore and I saw the bronze steersman as the old man had described. I climbed into the canoe and made sure not to call God's name. I didn't say a word. I sat down silently and the bronze driver began to row the canoe away from the mountain. I rowed continuously until the 9th day when I saw familiar islands, which made me happy to see that I was about to escape danger. Being so happy made me forget the taboo. I cried out, "Thank God? Glory to Him!" Before I finished speaking, the boat sank into the depths along with the bronze pilot, and I was floating on the water. I swam and swam until the end of the day, aiming for the nearest land I could see. A dark, dark night followed and, I didn't know where I was at this time. I kept swimming haphazardly. My strength gradually weakened. I began to despair that it was difficult for me to escape death, when the wind suddenly became strong. A wave as high as a mountain threw me onto a sandy beach, then receded and left me lying there. I quickly got up and ran quickly to the mainland for fear that another wave would come and take me away. The first thing to do is to take off your clothes, wring them dry and then spread them out to dry on the sand, which is still hot from the day. The next day, the sun soon finished drying all my clothes. I put it on and went to find out where I was now. Just after walking a short distance, I realized that I was on a small, very rich desert island, with many fruit trees growing. But at the same time, I also realized that it was very far from the mainland, which greatly reduced the joy of escaping death at sea. Anyway, I leave my fate up to God decides according to His will. At that moment, I saw a small ship coming from the mainland, with all its sails and bow pointing towards the island where I was standing. There is no doubt that it will land on this island. It's unclear whether the passengers on the train are friends or enemies, so I don't think I should show myself yet. Climbed a tall tree with dense branches and leaves, where I could observe what was on the ship. The ship came to rest in the narrow channel and about 10 slaves got out carrying a shovel and other digging tools. They reached the middle of the island and I saw them stop and dig for a moment. Looking at their actions, it seems like they opened a hatch. Then they returned to where the train was parked, carried down many belongings, and then dropped down. I realized there was an underground bunker there. I saw them go back to the ship again and a moment later got off with an old man, who was leading a very handsome boy of about 14 or 15 years old. They all ducked into the hold where the hatch was open and when they got up they lowered the hatch, covered it with dirt and then walked towards the small waist where the ship was anchored. I noticed that there was no young man among them. From there I concluded that this guy had stayed underground, which surprised me. The old man and the slaves boarded the ship and sailed toward the mainland. When the ship was gone, I climbed down from the tree and immediately went to the place where they had just dug. It was my turn to dig in the dirt until I came across a square stone slab about 2 or 3 feet tall. I turned it over and saw that it covered the descent of a stone staircase. I walked down the stairs and found myself in a large room with a doormat and a bed covered with another carpet and cushions covered in beautiful fabric. The boy sat on the canopy holding a fan. I noticed all of that under the light of 2 candles and next to the boy there were many fruits and vases of flowers. The boy was startled when he saw me. But to make him feel secure, I went in and said, "Whoever you are, Please don't be afraid. A king and a prince like me cannot have any offense towards you. On the contrary, your lucky fate has caused me to be here to take you out of this grave, because it seems that people have buried you alive for reasons I don't know. But what makes me wonder and find it hard to accept, because I have seen everything that has happened since people came to this island, is that it seems like you let them bury you alive here without any help. Any opposition. Scheherazade stopped talking here, and the emperor stood up, wondering why this young man was left in a tunnel on a deserted island. He said to himself that he would listen further the next night for clarity. Dinarzade, when he saw that it was time, called out to the queen, "Sister, if you are no longer sleeping, please finish telling the third-person story." Scheherazade did not let me repeat it, so she continued. As follows. The young man, the third monk continued, heard that. He felt reassured and smiled and invited me to sit down next to him. He said immediately, "Dear Prince, I will tell you clearly, you will be surprised at its unusual specialness. My father was originally a gold and jade merchant who became very rich thanks to his hard work and resourcefulness in his profession. He had many slaves, and his servants often went on sea voyages on my father's ships to keep in touch with the many courts to which my father supplied the jewels they needed. Having been married for a long time without having children, once in a dream she was told that she would have a son, but this son had a short life, so when she woke up she was extremely sad. A few days later, my mother informed someone that she was pregnant at the time that she felt the pregnancy fell on the day he dreamed. After 9 months, she gave birth to me, and the whole family was extremely happy. My father was present on the day I was born and went to have an astrology reading. The teachers said, "Your son will live healthy until the age of 15, but at that time he will encounter a disaster that will be difficult to escape. If he overcomes this disaster, he will live a long life." At that time the teachers added the statue, "The bronze knight on the top of the magnetic mountain will be shot into the sea by Prince Agib, son of King Kasab, and the stars will show that 50 days later, his son will be killed by Prince Agib." Because of the prophecy, guessing that it was in line with my father's dream, he was extremely sad. However, he has not neglected to educate me until now, the year I turned 15 years old. Yesterday the person known as the knight was. It has been 10 days since Prince Agib shot him into the sea. That news made people shed countless tears and panic to the point that no one recognized him anymore. Based on the predictions of the teachers, "Astrologer, you tried to trick my star to save my life. You took precautions to build this place a long time ago to serve as a place for me to hide for a period of 50 days from now on. When the statue on the Magnet Mountain was toppled, that's why when he learned that the statue had been toppled for 10 days, he quickly took me and pushed me into a hidden underground cellar and promised that within 40 days he would come to pick me up. As for me," the young man added, "I am full of hope and do not believe that Prince Agib would come to this deserted island to find me in a hidden bunker. That's all the story I want to tell you." While the pearl merchant's son told his story, I silently scoffed at the astrologers for making predictions that were so out of place. So after hearing the story, I said to him with excitement, "Dear boy, believe in God's mercy and fear nothing. Consider this a debt to be paid, and from the moment you've paid your bills, I'm pleased that after sinking the boat, I came here to protect you against those who wanted to harm your life. I won't leave you for all this time. The remaining days are when the astrologer's false predictions make you worried. During that time I will help you with everything I can. After that, I will take advantage of the opportunity to return to Earth. Immediately, board the ship with you with the consent of your father and you. And when I return to my kingdom, I will not forget my gratitude and will try to show my gratitude well deserved. These words, my words, made him feel secure and confident. I avoided saying that I was a gib to make him afraid and so that he would not suspect anything, so I was very careful in my words and gestures. Chatting together about many issues until late at night, I realized that this guy was really smart. We ate together the food that had been stored in the cellar. Not only was there not enough food left over for 40 days, but besides me as a guest, it could also be given to many other people. After the meal, we continued chatting for a while before going to bed. The next morning, I woke up, brought a basin of water for him to wash his face, then I prepared to cook, and when the meal came, we served it together. After the meal, I set up a game not only to play during the day but also for the following days. I did the same for dinner. We ate, talked and went to bed just like the previous day. Time has made us closer each time. I realized that he was very fond of me and on my part, a special feeling made me consider him as a relative. I often thought to myself, those fortune-tellers who told his father that his son would be killed by my hands were truly liars. It was impossible for me to commit such a criminal act. Finally, ma'am, we passed 39 of the most peaceful and happiest days in the world in that underground bunker. Then came the last day, the 40th day. In the morning, when he woke up, the young man was filled with unstoppable joy and said to me, "Prince, the 40th day is here, but I'm okay, I'm not dead. Extremely grateful to God and his friendship. My father will also never forget your gratitude and he will create all the necessary means and amenities to help you return to your homeland." In the meantime, he added, "Please give me a bucket of hot water so I can bathe and change into nice clothes to welcome my father properly." I put the bucket of water on the stove and when it was warm enough, I poured it into the bathtub. The boy came in, I scrubbed him. Stepping out of the bathtub, he came to rest on the bed that I had prepared. I covered him with a blanket. After lying down and sleeping for a while, he told me, "Your Highness, please bring me a fruit with sugar so I can eat it to stay awake." Among the many remaining fruits, I chose the tastiest one to put on a plate. Because I looked around and didn't see any knife to give, I asked the guy if he knew where the knife was. "There is a sharp knife," he told me, "in the hole in the wall above my head." Yes, I saw that sharp knife but was too hasty to reach for it, and when I had it in my hand, my eye was caught in the blanket, so I fell on him and the sharp knife stabbed into the boy's chest and hit his heart, killing him immediately. At that scene, I screamed. I punched him hard in the head and face. Into my chest, I tore my pants and shirt and rolled around on the ground, suffering and regretting so much. "Oh my!" I cried out, only a few hours left to escape the danger zone. To fight back, he sought refuge, and while I thought the accident was over, now I became a murderer and made that prophecy come true. But, oh my God, I raised my hands and raised my face to the sky and added, "If I am truly the culprit who killed this guy, then please don't let me live anymore." Scheherazade is forced to stop this tragic story. Because it was dawn. The emperors of India were very moved and wondered what happened to the monks after those events. He did not order the execution of Queen Scheherazade that day because only she could solve this question for him. Dinarzade, as usual, woke the queen. If you don't sleep, I ask you to tell me what happened after the death of that young man. Scheherazade immediately continued as follows. Madam, the third monk said to Zobeide after the misfortune that happened, I am ready to wait for death without the slightest fear. But the bad things and the inevitable are not them. I can just pray. However, thinking deeply, I see that neither tears nor heartache can revive this boy, and at the end of 40 days, I will most likely be caught by my father. It was too messy, so I went out of the tunnel and climbed up the stairs. I took down the big stone blocking the entrance and covered it with dirt. As soon as I finished, I looked towards the mainland and saw the ship coming. To pick up the young man. Thinking about what to do, I said to myself, if I come out, the old man will definitely have me arrested and the slaves will probably kill me when he sees my condition. Boy caused by me. No matter how hard I try to explain, you will not believe that I am innocent. It's better to stay away than expose yourself to his wrath. Near that tunnel there was a big tree with dense branches and leaves that could cover me. I climbed up and just had time to find a private spot when I saw the ship come into the place where it had first moored. The old man and the slaves immediately got off the ship and walked towards the underground bunker with faces full of hope, but when they saw that the ground had just been dug up, their faces changed, especially the old man. They raised the stone slab and walked down the steps. They called out to the young man's name, but there was no response. They were so scared, they searched and finally found him lying flat on the bed, with a sharp knife stuck in his heart because I didn't have the courage to pull it out. Seeing this, they howled in pain. Their screams also made my heart ache. The old man fell down and fainted. The servants carried him out of the cellar for fresh air and placed him right under the tree where I was breathing and trying to recover. But despite being well cared for, this poor father was still in a coma, making the servants think he would hardly survive. But then he finally woke up after a long faint. Then the slaves brought his son's body, dressed in the most beautiful clothes. And after digging the hole, they slowly and solemnly placed the teenager down there. The old man, supported by two servants on both sides, his face filled with tears, was the first to throw a handful of soil into the grave, then the servants filled the hole with soil. After the burial, all the furniture and food from the basement were taken out and brought to the ship. The old man no longer had the strength to walk, so he was placed on a stretcher and then everyone boarded the sailboat and left the island to return to the mainland. Just a moment later, the ship was out of my sight. Daylight shone into the defense of the Emperor of India, forcing Scheherazade to stop speaking. Shahryar also stood up as always and for the same reason. Like the night before, he still let the queen live and stay with Dinarzade. The next day before dawn, Dinarzade told her, "My dear sister, if you don't sleep anymore, please let me listen to the story of the third ascetic." "Here you go," Scheherazade said. "You must remember that this prince is still telling Zobeide and his friends his story." He continued, as follows, "After the ship took the old man and his servants away, I was alone on the island. At night, I slept in the open cellar, and during the day I walked around the island, and when my legs got tired, I found a convenient place to rest to relieve fatigue. I continued my depressed life like that for about a month. In the last days, I saw that the sea level receded quite a bit and the island became larger than before, as if the mainland was getting closer. Indeed, the sea level had dropped so low that there was only a short stretch of water between me and the mainland. I waded across, the sea water only reached my calves. I walked for so long on the sand that I was exhausted. At last I set foot on firmer ground and found myself very far from the sea. Suddenly seeing a big fire in front of me made me extremely happy. I'll meet someone, I thought to myself, because it can't be that fire suddenly appeared. But when I got closer, I realized that the red mass that I thought was fire was actually a red bronze castle that the sunlight shining in made it easy for anyone looking from afar to mistake it for a fire. I stopped and sat down next to that castle, not because I wanted to see a wonderful architecture, but just because I wanted to sit and rest to regain my strength because I was so tired and exhausted. Before I could think anything about this beautiful castle, I suddenly saw 10 mature young men walking as if on the way home. But what surprised me so much was that they all had one eye in their right eye. They followed a tall old man with a respectable appearance. I was so surprised that I met so many one-eyed people at the same time with the same one eye. While I was guessing why that was the case, they came closer and seemed happy to see it. Saw me. After the first greetings and congratulations, they asked me why I came here. I replied that my story was quite long and if they were willing to sit down, they would tell it. They sat down and talked. I told all my stories from the time I left the kingdom until now. The story surprised them very much. After the story was over, these young nobles invited me to go into the castle with them. I accepted. We went through many rooms: the outer room, the waiting room, the inner room, the office. All were furnished with elegant furniture and very clean. Finally we went into a room. In the middle of that circle is an 11th pedestal of the same color but placed low. Then on it sat the old man I mentioned, and 10 young people sat on the other 10 pedestals. Because each pedestal only has enough room for one person, a young man told me, "Please sit on the carpet in the middle and do not ask anything related to us, including the reason why we are here. Both have one eye in their right eye. Be content to just look and don't let your curiosity go too far." The old man did not sit for long. He stood up and went out. A moment later, he returned with dinner for 10 young men, each of whom ate his own portion. I also got a portion and ate alone like everyone else. And at the end of the meal, the same old man gave each person a cup of wine. My story was so strange to them that they forced me to tell it from the beginning of the meal and then discussed it until late at night. One of the boys let everyone know that it was late at night and said to the old man, "You see, it's time to go to bed and yet you don't give us what we need to fulfill our duty." Hearing that, the old man stood up and went into a room, carrying 10 pots on his head, each covered with a green cloth, brought them out and placed them in front of each guy along with a torch. They opened the lid of the pot, which contained ash, powdered charcoal and pot soot. They mixed those 3 things together and started rubbing and applying them on their faces, making them look horrifyingly dirty. After blackening their faces like that, they cried out, punched their heads and chests with their hands, and kept calling out, "This is the result of our laziness and debauchery?" They kept doing that for most of the night. Then they finally stopped, and the old man brought clean water for them to wash their faces, noses and limbs. They also took off their dirty black clothes and put on other clothes. They looked the same now as before, not like they had just done the weird things I had witnessed. Madam, please consider my frustration during that time. Thousands of times I tried to break the silence that the boys had imposed on me to reveal my truth. And I couldn't close my eyes for the rest of the night. The next day, everyone woke up and went outside to get some fresh air. I told them, "Gentlemen, I would like to tell you that I reject the law that you proposed to me yesterday afternoon. I can't comply. You are all very wise and intelligent people, I know that clearly. However, I see you doing things that no one other than insane people would do. No matter what calamity befalls me, it cannot stop me from asking you why you smear your face with ash, charcoal, and soot. Then why do they all have only one eye? There must be some special reason. Therefore, I ask you to satisfy my curiosity and let me understand everything." Faced with such urgent pleas, they said nothing. At most they just said that these were things that had nothing to do with me, that even if I knew it, it wouldn't be of any benefit, so I should just stay still. During the day we talked about this and that without getting anywhere, but when evening came, after eating and drinking separately, the old man brought out the green pots, and the boys smeared their faces and noses to make it black. Unlucky, then crying, then punching himself and exclaiming, "This is the result of our laziness and debauchery?" The next day and the following days they still did the same. Finally, unable to suppress my curiosity, I seriously asked them to either explain it to me clearly or show me the way back to my hometown because I couldn't stay any longer with them when I had to witness it every night. Saw a very strange scene without understanding the reason why. One of the boys told me on behalf of all of us, "Please do not be surprised at our attitude towards you, if up to this point we have not given in to your entreaties. It was simply out of friendship for him. We want to avoid for you the same sad situation that you saw in us. If you really want to have the same miserable fate as us, just say so, we will meet your request." I told them I was ready to bear all the consequences. Once again the same guy said, "We advise you to curb your curiosity. It will make you lose your right eye." "It's okay," I said. "I declare to you that if that disaster happens to me, you will not be responsible at all, and it is because I caused it." This guy also told me that once I lost an eye, I would no longer be able to stay with them, assuming I had that intention because the number was enough and could not be added anymore. I told them that being with them was a wish for me, but if necessary, I was ready to obey because at any cost, I expected them to meet my demands. 10 boys saw that my decision was decisive, immediately took a sheep, killed it, skinned it, gave me the knife they used and told me, "Please take this knife. It will help you. In which case we will tell you later. Now, please lie down in this sheepskin so we can sew it closed. Then we will leave, leaving you alone here." At that time, an unusually large bird called an eagle will appear in the air. It thought he was a sheep and would swoop down, steal him and fly up to cloud 9. But don't be afraid, it will swoop down to the ground again and put you on top of a mountain. When you touch the ground, Use this knife to cut the sheepskin and get out. The eagle, seeing him, will be frightened and fly away, leaving him free. Don't stop there, just keep walking until you set foot in front of a massive castle covered with gold plates, giant jade stones and many other pure precious stones. He reached the castle door and entered because the door was always left open. All of us here have also been at that castle. I will not tell you what we saw and what happened to us there. He will find out for himself. What we can tell you is that we each paid with our right eyes, and the punishment you witnessed was something that had to be done because we were in that castle. Each of our personal stories is filled with details of strange adventures that could fill a thick book, but right now we cannot tell you more. At this point, Scheherazade stopped speaking, and said to the Emperor of India, "Because today my sister woke me up earlier than usual, telling me a long story for fear of bothering the king, but behold, the sky was already bright at the right time, forcing me to stop." The emperor's curiosity. Emperor Shahryar had won his own oath. Dinarzade did not wake up as early as last night. However, she still called her sister before dawn. "If you don't sleep anymore, I will tell you the story of the third monk." Scheherazade continued as follows. The same ascetic monk said to Zobeide, "Madam, one of the 10 one-eyed boys said that to me, which I just told you about. So I crawled into the skin. Sheep took the knife they had given them. And after they had sewn the skin shut with me inside, they left me lying there and retreated to the living room. The great eagle they spoke of was not long in coming. Flew towards me, swooped straight at me, used his hoofs to pick me up like a sheep and carried me to the top of the mountain. When I felt like I was on the ground, I didn't forget to use the knife to cut the banyan sheet and crawled in front of the eagle. When it saw me, it quickly flapped its wings and flew away. This eagle is a terrifyingly large white feathered bird. With that strength, it can be picked up like an elephant from the plains and taken to a high mountain to be slaughtered. Eager to get to the castle, without wasting any time, I walked quickly and arrived in just half a day. I can say that in my eyes, this castle is much more splendid than I heard it described. The gate opened, and I entered a very large square courtyard surrounded by 99 doors of sandalwood and agarwood and 1 door of gold, not counting the doors leading to the magnificent staircase leading up to the chambers beyond. Above and there are many other doors that I don't see. The 100 doors I mentioned above opened into gardens or warehouses filled with riches or places filled with strange objects. Seeing an open door in front of me, I went in. It was a large living room with 40 young women already seated in it, with gorgeous beauty that even the imagination could hardly surpass. They dressed luxuriously. As soon as they saw me enter, they all stood up and without waiting for me to greet or congratulate them, they expressed their joy and said to me, "Noble young man, congratulations, congratulations." And a young woman spoke on behalf of everyone. "It's been a long time. We've been waiting for a gallant guy like you. Your appearance tells us that you have all the qualities we desire, and we hope that you will not find our presence unpleasant or unworthy of you." After many excuses, I had to sit in the forced seat, which was a little higher than their seat. When I expressed reluctance, they said, "That is your place. Right now you are our lord, boss, and judge. And we are your slaves, ready to obey what you command." "Nothing in this world, ma'am," surprised me more than the enthusiastic attitude of these beautiful young women, ready to serve, to answer all my requests. A lady brought hot water to wash my feet. Another girl put perfume on my hands. These girls brought me new clothes for me to change into. The other girls gave me something to eat, and the remaining girls came to the handheld cup ready to pour me a delicious wine. All this work was carried out smoothly, with a skillfully coordinated order and with a style that fascinated me. I drank, I ate. Then everyone gathered around me, demanding that I recount my trip. I told them all the details of what happened, and the story continued until dusk. Scheherazade stopped at this point. Her sister asked why. "So, don't you see it's morning?" the queen replied. "Why didn't he wake her up earlier?" The emperor guessed that the monk's arrival at a castle with 40 beautiful young women must have promised that many things would happen worthy of attention. He did not want to deprive himself of the pleasure. After hearing what I had to say, I postponed the date of the queen's trial even more. Compared to the previous night, Dinarzade was not as quick this night. It was almost dawn when she said to the queen, "Dear sister, if you are no longer sleeping, please tell me what happened at that magnificent castle where you stopped last night." "I will tell you right away," Scheherazade replied, and turned to said to the emperor, "Your Majesty." Then the monk continued to tell the story like this. When I had finished telling my story to the 40 young women, a few of them sitting near me stayed behind to accompany me, chatting further. Meanwhile the others, seeing that night had fallen, stood up to look for candles to light. They brought a lot of candles, lit as brightly as daylight, but they arranged the decorations in a beautiful, symmetrical way. Other women placed dried fruits, jams and drinks on the table. Various types of alcohol are displayed in the cabinet. Some of the girls appeared with musical instruments in their hands. When everything was ready, the girls invited me to sit at the table, and they also sat down. We sat together for quite a while. The girls whose job was to play the piano and the girls who had to harmonize their voices with the music all stood up and formed a charming chorus. The other girls began a dance, one by one, holding each other's hands, one couple after another, incredibly elegant and charming. After midnight, the fun stopped. One of the young women spoke up and told me, "You're tired from today's journey. It's time for you to rest. Your private room has been prepared, but before you go there, you should choose which of the concubines you like the most. Please take her home to sleep with you." I replied that I would not make that choice as suggested because I found all of them beautiful, intelligent, and worthy of my respect and sense of service. I don't want to make the mistake of being rude if I say I like one person more than the other. The same young woman who spoke to me said, "We really believe in your straightforwardness, and we clearly see that you are afraid that we will become jealous of each other, so we keep quiet. But please don't be shy. We have agreed that the happiness of the girl you choose will not make us jealous at all, because every night we enjoy that happiness in turn. Every 40 days the turn comes and a new turn begins. So you should be free to choose. Don't waste the time you need to rest." I had to give in and held out my hand to her. She spoke to me on behalf of all my sisters. She also offered her hand to me, and we were led to a splendid room. They left us alone, and the other women all went to their own rooms. But it's already dawn. Your Majesty Scheherazade said to the Emperor and asked him please allow me to leave the monk and his young lady in their private room. Shahryar was silent, but he stood up and said to himself, I must admit that this is a wonderful story. I will make the biggest mistake in history. If you don't take the time to listen to the end, Dinarzade, at the end of the next night, don't forget to tell your sister? Sister? If you don't want to sleep anymore, I'd like you to tell me the rest of the amazing story about Can the third monk tell me? Please, Scheherazade replied, and these are the words of the prince, who continued his story. The next morning, just after getting dressed, he was 39 young men. The other woman came to my room, all wearing different makeup than the day before. The girls wished me a nice day and asked about my health. Then they took me to the bathroom, scrubbed me with their own hands, and even though it was against my will, they still helped me with everything I needed. The girls dressed me in another outfit that was even more beautiful than yesterday's outfit. We mostly just sat at the dining table all day, and when it was time to go to bed, the girls asked me to choose someone to spend the night with. Madam, so that you don't get bored of hearing the same thing over and over again, I would like to summarize that for a full year I lived with 40 young women, and each night I slept with one of them. And throughout that time, that joyful life was never interrupted by any small sadness. At the end of that year, nothing surprised me more. Those 40 young women were supposed to come to me happily as usual, asking about my health. When one morning they came into my room, tears streaming down their face. One by one they came to hug and kiss me and say, "Goodbye, dear prince, farewell? We have to leave you." Their tears made me shake. I asked them to tell me the cause of their sadness and the separation they had just said. I added, "In the name of God, my beautiful sisters, please tell me what can be done to comfort and help you now." Instead of answering clearly, you said, "God is my witness. It would be better if we never knew you. Many people before you have had the opportunity to visit us, but no one has the charm, gentleness, youthfulness, joy and character like you. We are not knowing how they would live without him." After saying that, the girls cried bitterly. "My lovely girls," I said, "I beg you, don't make me more sad, please. Tell me at once the cause of your heartache." "Alas," they said, "is there anything else that makes us heartbroken than having to leave you? Maybe we will never be able to have it again. See him again? However, if he wants and controls himself because of this, it is not impossible to see each other again." "Girls?" I said again, "I don't understand what you guys want to say. Please say it clearly." Then a girl said, "To please you, I will tell you that we are both princesses, daughters of the king. We live together here in the kind of pleasure you see, but every year we are forced to be absent for 40 days for necessary and unspeakable duties. Then we will return here again. Yesterday was the end of the year, today we have to say goodbye to you. So that is the cause of our sadness. Before we leave, shall we leave you all the keys? Especially the keys to the doors of hundreds of rooms, in which you will find all kinds of interesting and strange things that can satisfy your curiosity and ease your lonely sadness during our absence. But for your own good and for our own good, please do not touch or open the golden door of one special room among the 100. If he opens it, it won't. When will we see each other again? And that worry makes us suffer even more. We hope that you will do as we tell you. It is related to the peace and happiness of life. Be careful, if you let your curiosity take over, you have made a big mistake. We advise you not to make that mistake and let us hold out hope that we will see you here again within the next 30 days. We could take the key to that golden door with us, but it would be an insult to a decent prince like you to doubt your discretion and self-restraint." Scheherazade wanted to continue, but saw that it was already morning. The emperor, curious to know what the monk was doing when he was alone in the castle after the 40 young women had left, made an appointment to wait until the next night. Was clarified. Oh, the benevolent girl Dinarzade woke up long before dawn, calling to the queen, "Sister, if you don't sleep well, you should continue to tell the emperor, our lord. Listen to the story you started." Scheherazade turned to Charler and said, "Your Majesty, you know that the monk still tells his story to Zobeide." He continued like this, "Madam, the words, the advice of these beautiful princesses really touches my heart. I expressed to them that their absence made me feel infinitely sad. I am very grateful for your thoughtful advice. I promise them that I will listen and try my best to do more difficult things to have the happiness of living the rest of my days with rare women like you." The farewell was filled with affection. I hugged and kissed them one by one. Then the girls left, and I remained alone in the castle. The pleasures of common life, the sumptuous parties, concerts, and amusements kept me so busy all year long that I had neither the time nor the slightest desire to see the wonders that can fill this magical castle. I also didn't pay any attention to all the beautiful things that appeared before my eyes every day because I was so engrossed in the beauty of young women, seeing them only interested in doing things for me. Interesting. I was so sad when they left and, although their absence was only for 40 days, I felt like I had to live without them for centuries. I promised myself that I would not forget their important advice to never open the golden door. And it seemed that just like that, I was allowed to satisfy my curiosity at those doors. I took the first key that had been arranged in order. I opened the first door and entered an orchard that I thought had no comparable orchard in the entire universe. I also don't think the paradise garden that our religion promises to its followers after death can be any better than this. The symmetry, the cleanliness, the wonderful arrangement of the plants, the richness and diversity of thousands of strange, lush, and beautiful fruits all overwhelmed my eyes. I must not omit to remark to you, madam, that this wonderful garden is watered in a very unusual manner. The water trenches are cleverly and carefully dug to bring adequate water to the roots of plants that need to sprout new leaves and flowers. Other gutters bring just enough water to the base of trees that are starting to bear fruit. Other trenches send less water to the roots of trees where the fruit has grown. Other ditches only water enough for the trees whose fruit is just waiting to be picked. And these fruits are also many times larger than those usually found in our gardens. As for other ditches that carry water to trees with ripe fruit, they only need enough moisture to maintain the quality of the fruit that has not yet been picked. I couldn't get enough of looking at a place with such wonderful scenery and wouldn't want to leave any more if I didn't see through my mind that there were still many interesting things that I had yet to see. Going out of the garden, my mind full of miracles, I closed the first door and opened the next. Instead of a fruit garden, there is a flower garden, which is no less special about this type of garden. The garden consists of a large plot of land that is watered not in the same way as an orchard but much more elaborately so that each type of flower receives just enough water for its growth. Roses, jasmine, violets, daffodils, jasmine, peonies, tulips, foxgloves, carnations, lilies and countless other flowers that otherwise would be blooms according to the seasons, but here, thousands of purple and pink flowers bloom at the same time. There is nowhere more refreshing than in the garden where the air is permeated with this fragrance. I opened the third door, which was a very large birdhouse. The floor is paved with marble of all colors, some of the most precious and rarest stones. Birdcage made of sandalwood and agarwood. Those vast cages contained countless nightingales, goldfinches, canaries, nightingales, and other birds whose songs were so melodious that I had never seen anyone speak in my life. The jars containing seeds and water for the birds are made of the most precious marble and agate. This birdhouse is extremely clean. Just looking at its scale, I estimate that there must be no less than 100 people to preserve it in such pristine condition. But there was not a single person in sight. Just as in the gardens I visited, there was not a single blade of weed, not even a small redundancy that was an eyesore. The sun had set. I returned, my ears still ringing with the songs of all kinds of birds now looking for the most convenient place to park for the night. I went back to my room and decided I would. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.